we're talking about the meaning of angles, we have to take a look back at one of our very first videos that we did, the meaning of one hole. Because when you're talking about the meaning of angles, really you're just talking about a circle or one hole. And instead of giving it a different name like 1.00 or 100%, because we're talking about angles, we're talking about 360 degrees. If we take our one hole and we cut it in half, we'll end up with 180 degrees on the top and 180 degrees on the bottom of the circle. That's because if we take the 360 and cut it in half, we'll end up with 180. We don't necessarily have to cut the circle in half. What we can do is we can cut it into 4 as well. And the kids in the class should realize that if you cut the circle into quarters, what you really do is you take 360 and cut it into 4 pieces. You'll end up with 90 degrees in each quarter. Kids really need to know that a half cut into 2 pieces is a quarter. And each one of those quarters is worth 90 degrees. If we take the 4 90s, we add them together, we end up with a 360 again. So a quarter of a hole is worth 90 degrees. If we do the same thing with a hole, but now instead of dividing it into quarters, we divide it into eighths. What we've really done is we've taken the 360 and we cut it into 8 pieces. By doing that, we end up getting 45 degrees in each part. The kids need to realize that if you take 360, cut it in half, you get 180. Cut 180 in half, you get 90. Cut 90 in half, you get 45s. So a half of a circle is 180, a quarter of a circle is 90 degrees, and an eighth of a circle is worth 45 degrees. If you take an angle, really all you're doing with an angle is you have part of a circle. So really all you have is a piece of 360 degrees. You have a part of a hole. So let's take a look at this angle here. It's angle ABC, and what we want to do is we want to estimate how big it is. We know a couple things. We know that it is bigger than a quarter, so it's larger than 90 degrees. We know that angle ABC is less than 180 degrees. When you take a look at it, it kind of falls in the middle now between 90 and 180. So that's around 45 degrees added to 90 degrees. So a good estimate for this angle is 135 degrees. Let's try a different one. I'll draw a new angle down here. When we take a look at this angle, it's quite small. And now I have angle ABC. I know a couple things about it. I know it's greater than 0 degrees, and I know it's less than 90 degrees. It's even less than 45 degrees. It's quite small, therefore. Being less than 45, even if I had to estimate, let's say, a half of 45, we're in the 20 range here. So what would be a reasonable estimate? Maybe 20 or 30 degrees. Let's take a look at one of these sort of problems. In this case, we have a series of lines, and we've cut it up. Notice how I'm outlining a piece of it as being a half a circle. To solve these kind of problems, what you really want to do is look for half circles. So over here I have angle A plus 45 degrees is worth half a circle, which is 180. To figure out what A is worth, all I need to do is take the 45 away from the 180, and that'll end up with 135 degrees. So angle A is worth 135. Now that I figured that out, I need to look for another half circle somewhere. Let me outline another half circle. In this case, I have 180 degrees when I take angle B and I add it to angle A. Since I already know that angle A is 135 degrees, angle B plus that 135 is going to have to be worth 180. So, in order to figure out the value of angle B, all I really need to do now is I have to subtract the 135 away from the 180. And when I do that, I end up with 45 degrees. going to look for another half circle. I can see one here, and I'll outline it. The B and the angle C will give me another half circle. Since I've already figured out that angle B is worth 45, it's pretty simple to figure out what angle C is worth now. All I need to do is add angle C and 45 degrees. When I do that, to figure out what angle C is worth, all I need to do is subtract the 45 degrees from the 180. That ends up with 135 degrees. Therefore, angle C is worth 135. How can I check to make sure I'm right? Well, the whole thing has to be worth 360 degrees. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add up all my angles. So I got two 45s, two 135s. When I add all those things together, I get 360 degrees. Let's try a different question. In this one, the square box is automatically worth 90 degrees. Let me look for another half circle. I have one right here. So what that means is A plus that 90 degrees is worth 180. The only thing that A can be worth then is 90 degrees, because if I take 90 away from the 180, I'm left with 90. Let's look for another half circle. I have a half circle on the bottom of the line here too. So that's 180 degrees as well. So what I realize here is that B plus 120 is going to equal 180. In order to figure out what B is worth, all I need to do is subtract 120 from the 180. That leaves me with 60 degrees. So B is worth 60 degrees. In order to check my work, all I need to do now is add up all the angles to make sure I have 360 degrees. So let's do that. So I've got a 90, another 90, I have a 120, I have a 60. When I add those things together, I end up with 360 degrees, so I have to be right. Let's try a different one. This one's a little more complicated, but I still solve it the same way. Look for half circles. Here I see that B plus 120 has to be worth 180. To figure out what B is worth, all I need to do is subtract the 120 from the 180. When I do that, B is worth 60 degrees. Now that I figured that out, let's look for more half circles. Let me outline another one here. Okay, I have the angle I just figured out, which is 60. If I add that to A, I get another half circle. Half circles are always worth 180, so all I need to do here is say angle A plus 60 degrees is worth 180. It's a half. To figure out what angle A is, all I need to do is subtract the 60 from the 180. That leaves me with 120 degrees. Last unknown I have is angle D. And it's a bit more complicated, but if I find a half circle, it turns out to be pretty simple. So let me see if I can outline a half circle here. Now in this half circle, instead of just having two angles, I have three angles. I have the angle I figured out, angle A, which is 120. I have the 45 degrees that's given to me, and I have angle D. But those three things make a half circle, so they have to equal 180. In order to figure out what angle D is now, all I need to do is subtract the 120 and the 45 from the 180. When I do that, angle D ends up being worth 15 degrees. In order to check my work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add everything up, make sure it equals 360, because the 360 is the whole. So I've got 120, another 120. I've got 60, 45, and 15. When I add those things up, equals 360 degrees. Gotta be right. Let's try these things for practice. Draw the question out yourself, and then pause the video. Start the video up again after you have your answer, and I'll show you what my solution is. Alright, let me show you how to figure out the answer. All you got to do is look for half circles again. So here I have a circle, 110 plus angle C. That's got to equal 180. Half circles are always 180. In order to figure out what angle C is, all I got to do is subtract the 110 from the 180. That leaves me with 70 degrees, so angle C is worth 70. Now that I have that, I just look for another half circle. Since I just figured out what 70 is, it might be a good idea to use this here. I got 110 plus A. Seems pretty similar to the first question I did. I'm going to end up with the same answer. Going to end up with the 70 on this side as well. Something interesting to note, when you have lines that make X's like this, the opposite angles are equal to each other. And if you keep making these half circles like this, you can see why that actually works. In high school and in grade 8, teachers tell you that opposite angles are equal. Well, now you know why they are. Finally, our last half circle down here, we've got 70 plus angle B. Angle B is going to be worth 110. Because I'm going to subtract the 70 from the 180, that's going to give me the 110. Again, notice, I got 110 on the top, so opposite angles are equal to each other. Let's add them all up, make sure we got it right. 110, 110, 70, and 70. Add those all together, I end up with 360. Gotta be right. Let's try another one. Look at the question and pause the video. Pause it right now. Write the question out. Alright, here's your answer. I know I have a half circle right here. That's got to end up equaling 180 degrees. Don't forget, when you have these little squares in the corner, they're worth 90 degrees each. So that's a 90 right there. So what I really have here is 90 plus A plus the 50 degrees equals a half circle, which is 180 degrees. To figure out what the A is, all I got to do is subtract the 90 and 50 from the 180. '90 and 50 make 140, so that's what's going to happen here. 180 minus 140, and angle A is going to be worth 40 degrees. Once I have that, all I got to do now is look for more half circles. The unknown I have on the bottom is angle B. Well, I've got angle B on the left-hand side, but if you check out the right-hand side of this half circle that I'm going to draw over here, I've got a 90 degree in there. I also have a 90 degree in the top, so I could have done this one of two ways. Let's use the top 90 degree. So I have 90 plus B. That's going to equal 180. All half circles are worth 180. So now I'm going to have angle B equals 180 minus the 90 degrees. Therefore, angle B has to be worth 90 degrees. Let's double check everything by adding all our numbers up now. Here we go. 90 plus another 90 plus a third 90, that's going to give me 270, plus 40 plus 50, that's equaling 360. Gotta be right.